Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I have about 19 hours worth of footage to kind of get through, and I also kind of have a little bit of a channel update. Instead of the community tab on my channel, I have a post that I posted about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where I said that, working with Blender was kind of getting too intensive temporarily. In that, like supplying videos for Blender, it really was. This last week was actually not that bad, and the thing is like when I feel like my face is melting off, I find it really difficult to pay attention to Blender and to provide quality content that you guys would actually want to watch, that you guys would want to actually learn from or what have you, that sort of thing. So I've been holding off on the Blender content temporarily. I mean, you gotta, there's the old saying, the starving artist. That statement kind of exists for a reason, because artists they tend to starve for a really long time until they hit their niche or find their place in the market, and I'm kind of at that place where I'm kind of a starving artist, and the place where I live has shitty insulation, and the air conditioning barely even works. When it's close to 100 degrees inside of my place, and I feel like my face is melting off, I have to work with what I am the most familiar with, and that sort of thing. But anyhow, so basically Blender content is just around the horizon. I think, like I've mentioned that I've been wanting to get back into Blender, at least to some extent, and so that's kind of what you guys have to look forward to in the next coming weeks. Next week, I plan on actually having a video about 3-point perspective. I kind of want to get the linear perspective stuff out of the way, at least to some degree. Eventually I'll be creating videos about, me showing every single line that I draw and trying to explain as best as I can the logic behind each line as it pertains to perspective and such like that. I haven't really gotten very many people's feedback if those videos are helpful, but those videos are the most difficult to supply, and the reason is because I not only have to edit and kind of remaster all of the audio, get rid of all of my stutters and stammers inside of those types of videos, in order to kind of reduce the length of those videos, and they're not short. They're at least 30 to 45 minutes long, and then I have to babysit like every 2 to 3 seconds, sometimes even shorter, of that footage, and have it out by the end of the week. Okay, and so if I could get some feedback on those videos, like the one where I drew a car, the interior of a car, that would be really helpful. If you find those videos helpful, leave a comment in the video description below. Now, I also have another request later on down the road for a comment in the video description below. Just stay tuned and hear me out and such like that. Real quick here, I've mentioned recently within the last 3 or so videos that I've been using a different brush. Most of the time when people are asking, hey, what kind of brush do you use? I kind of don't take the question very seriously, because 99% of the time I just use the default round black brush. It's pretty self-explanatory. What brush do you think I use? But in this specific case, with Clip Studio Paint, I've been kind of curious what type of brushes are out there, and I've been downloading all of these free brushes, and the Navi brush is really good, actually. Something about the way it draws lines, and how it reacts to the pressure sensitivity and the speed. It creates lines in a way that feels like working with physical material. Like it looks like something that I would draw on pencil and paper, rather than it looking and feeling 100% like digital media. I mean, of course it's digital media, and of course it feels like digital media, but it doesn't look like it. And so it's got that little plus to it. And for some reason it also makes making things like tree branches, especially the really thin ones, it makes them look really cool, especially if you play around with the pressure sensitivity, or at least as you're holding the stylus and you just kind of press hard and then flick. That it really kind of makes a really nice tree branch. It really does. It looks pretty sharp. This was kind of like the intent of this video, or at least this image, was to kind of output a better masterpiece than what I made last week. Yeah, last week was really good, but the thing is I still think that last week's image is uncontested, even though this image took longer to make and all of that. Sometimes less is more. Even though last week's video definitely wasn't any small thing. I mean, there was a lot of cross-hatching inside of that image. But, I like to, in order to expand my horizons with illustration, what I like to do is experiment with extremes. Like, what can you do with too much cross-hatching and make it still look good? And then the next extreme that I want to try out is what can you do with very little cross-hatching and yet still, still having enough of it and making it look great. Okay, from what I'm experiencing right now, I anticipate that having a ton of cross-hatching is probably easier. I mean, more time-consuming, but probably easier than trying to, do the illustration with as little cross-hatching as possible. Because when you have a ton of cross-hatching, what you're able to do is you're able to just kind of draw the image. And if there's a few lines with your inking that's off, or with your cross-hatching that's off, there's so much cross-hatching that reinforces the idea of the shape and the form that those 3 or 4 lines in that little area don't really convey something that's incongruent with the shape and form. Whereas when you're dealing with a minimalist amount of cross-hatching, I think that you have to worry a lot more about making sure that each and every single cross-hatch is just perfect. Because if there's just one of those hatches that's just not communicating the shape and form correctly, then I think that it's just going to throw everything off. So I think that actually a minimalist approach is going to be a lot more difficult. After I feel like I've kind of gotten a handle on the minimalist approach, I think I'm going to try shooting for the happy medium, where it's like, okay, so I've experienced the extreme with too much cross-hatching, and I feel like this was way too much. And then there's the other extreme, not very much, and finding something in the middle between the two that looks good, at least for me. Now, there's 2 things about this image that I kind of don't like. Actually 3. It just to do 1 inch of the composition took freaking forever. And the other thing, like the second thing that I didn't really like about the image is something that actually looks really good on all of the other images that I've been making recently. It's the idea that when an object is further away from the camera, instead of using an absolute black for your line work, why not use a shade of gray? Well, that sounds great and all, but for some reason it just kind of dulled the image so that there wasn't as much contrast, and made it so that it was difficult to kind of guide the eye through the composition. And to compound this issue, there's the whole issue of the water. Now, I've drawn water throughout my life as an artist, throughout my childhood and everything like that, but and inside of my channel I've gone ahead and drawn water as well, but I've never really delved into like the physics of water, where water ripples interact and collide with other ripples, and then how that interacts with the rest of the ebb and flow and the waves of the water and such like that throughout the rest of the pond, that sort of thing. I've never done anything too elaborate with water. And I don't think it turned out right. Maybe it's the values I picked. Maybe it was the shapes that I made. I don't know. I'm gonna have to find this is what I've been doing kind of recently in order to kind of expand my horizons a little bit. You know my comic book critique series, where I critique a series of comic books and comic book artists and stuff like that. And that's me kind of dissecting techniques from artists or at least sharing with you guys how you can dissect techniques from other artists as well. And that's kind of what that series has been about. And so if you guys know of an artist that inks water in a really compelling way, then I'd be really interested in critiquing and taking a look at it and kind of dissecting some of the technique. Maybe I might be able to improve upon this image, because as it is right now, I do not think I am confident enough in its appearance as a professional piece of orphan last artwork. I'm not that confident in this. I'm debating whether or not I should even put it in my coloring book. Now, if you are one of the subscribers or one of the viewers that would love to get a hold of my artwork, and you would love to color this particular image, and you would love to purchase that coloring book, leave a comment in the comment section below if you want to color this image as is, okay? Like, if I get enough people commenting in the comment section saying that not only would they purchase my coloring book, but they would love to color this image as it is right now. The final image of, final output of this image is going to be available. Like, you're going to be able to see it at the end of the video. And if at the end of the video you see it and you would love to color it, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below and all that, as well as answering the last other thing that I mentioned earlier that I wanted you to comment on. I forgot what that was, unfortunately. Weird. Anyhow, but yeah, like, it's hard to pinpoint how many people I would need to comment on that. Is a thing, and it's not like I really try not to be that guy that's like, hey guys, that content that you watch my videos for? Yeah, I'm not going to make another one of those until I get 5,000 likes for this video. I try not to be that guy, but I kind of need to be that guy, saying if you want to color this image, if you want to purchase my coloring book down the road when I release it, and you want to color this image, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below, because if I don't get enough input from you guys, then you're not going to get this image. Because currently, right now, if this does not wind up inside of the coloring book, then this was just kind of a bit of a setback, to be honest, which is really unfortunate. And I think this is when I start inking the main character. I'm not 100% sure. No, I start inking this tree off in the distance. I don't know, man. This really just took forever. Everything about this just took forever. And just me rewatching my workflow for this image. I mean, after having experienced it, it's kind of painful for me just to watch it, because I know what I was experiencing at each phase and what I was thinking. I don't know. This is going to be the last image where I do this much cross-hatching, or as much cross-hatching as I did in the last week's video and such like that. Like, this is just too much. There comes a point where you can put yourself out of commission as an artist with cross-hatching. I mean, it looks great. It looks awesome. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful sort of technique and everything like that, and I do not have any, like, I honestly have no intention of not, like, I'm always going to be cross-hatching to some extent, I think. But I just, like, there comes a point where if you do too much of it, you can get carpal tunnel. And I've never actually seen anyone fully 100% recover from carpal tunnel. So, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. And if your hand starts to feel uncomfortable after cross-hatching for a while, make sure that you just stop and take a break for a few hours, because you don't really know how much damage you're doing to your hand. The thing is like, at the end of the day, after doing this for a few weeks, I mean, there's a few nights where, as I was kind of trying to drift off to sleep, my wrist would start to kind of either feel brittle, or it would just kind of throb a little bit. Not like painful, but it would throb to the point where it felt uncomfortable. And it's like, okay, well, as much as I like how this looks, I definitely cannot continue doing this much cross-hatching. Not only does it just take too freaking long, but you can put yourself out of commission permanently as an artist doing this. You can injure yourself permanently with cross-hatching, too much of it. And there is a healthy balance to when there's just the right amount and when there's, just too much, that sort of thing. Like, this is me just finishing up with a tiny rinky-dink tree right there, and that just took freaking forever just there. Like, I don't know. This image just took way too long. At the very beginning of the video, you saw me kind of, like, I had difficulty at the very beginning kind of conceptualizing shape and form, and so I wound up cross-hatching everything initially with black lines first, and then I would go back and do it with white lines. But that was idiotic, because that was twice as much work, because I'm still having to cross-hatch things twice. And yeah, see, look at this. Like, the things that are off in the distance that are just a shade of gray instead of absolute black. The only thing that they successfully managed to do is make it so that the tree in the foreground stands out because of contrast. But the things right below it, I think, need to be an absolute value of black. And I did kind of tinker with that a little bit with gradient maps and stuff like that towards the tail end of the video. And it wound up making it look a little bit better, and kind of helped guide the eye just a touch. But yeah, here you can see me kind of planting in some mist in the air, kind of like little clouds. I don't know how well they really communicate that they are clouds in the scene, but you got to try. I mean, I wanted there to be ambience and atmosphere with this image, and I think there's a fair amount of success, I guess, to that, but I think I still need to work on that, creating ambience for the scene. Here you actually see me cross-hatching the rocks that the trees are sitting on, because the idea is that this is kind of like a swamp, and I saw inside of the Bone comic books that there were some trees sitting on top of some rocks, and I kind of liked how that looked. So I went ahead and kind of wanted to copy that, and yeah, whatever. Okay, so here's where I start inking the main character, sitting up there on the top of the tree, looking down at the new enemy. In last week's video, I had an image of two people duking it out with this electrical orb in the background, and the voiceover for that video, I said maybe that orb is somehow stimulating the life on the planet to create something kind of like the Zerg. Once again, this is kind of like a I don't know. I don't know if it's really necessarily an IP, but just basically an idea for some type of universe, I guess, that I like drawing. That's mine, I guess. where it's kind of like a composite of a number of ideas, and sometimes when you composite ideas together, it becomes its own thing. The idea is that it's kind of like Star Wars, Stargate, and StarCraft mixed all together, at least to some degree. While not, the idea is not to completely rob these intellectual properties. I mean, I wouldn't want there to be like space travel. Maybe like you can send a satellite through a ring so that you have, like satellites, satellite imagery, maybe even access to the internet on an alien planet, and maybe you can send fighter jets out there, and maybe, or whatever sci-fi vehicles out there that. The idea, at least to me, like I like sci-fi that has interstellar travel with spaceships and all that. I like that, but in all actuality, I think that the only practical way of traveling through space would be with a wormhole. So Stargate, to me, seems like it's probably the most authentic way that we will have space travel at some point in time in the future, maybe, possibly, if wormholes can be generated artificially somehow. I don't know. I don't know what would be involved with that, but yeah. So yeah, this specific bug right here, I wanted to be careful because like there's a specific bug from the Dark Crystal. Like I didn't want it to become too similar to that, and I also didn't want it to kind of become too reminiscent of those, I don't know what those droids are in the prequels of Star Wars that just kind of roll around all over the place and have shields and then just kind of stand there and blow up and don't really do much of anything. I didn't want them to look like that too much. Now this bug is kind of cool. I kind of think I want to redesign it. I think that the scorpion tail was a little too much. I think that its body needs to be more narrow. And I love its face and its mouth, and while drawing its face and such, I was kind of thinking of something like the Black Widow spider. Like on its back end, you can kind of see the hourglass. And now it's not like it has an hourglass. That's just imagery that we have to describe what's on the Black Widow's back end. So like I didn't want to create a skull that actually looks like it was intentionally a skull, but more like something that nature might create to kind of coincidentally make imagery that we might associate with how a skull looks. And so I kind of created this weird graphically designed looking skull on its head, and I don't know if I necessarily pulled it off, but that's kind of like the sort of philosophy that I had with that. But sometimes just like I said in the previous video, like character design is fun and all that, but like I'm more interested in like playing around with character designs inside of a fully fleshed out background to see how that creature looks inside of that world. That way it's not like compartmentalized and like just completely without context. Anyways, the final image is on the screen right now. I don't know. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you'd like to color this image as is, if you would purchase the coloring book and all that, and would want to color it. If you don't, then it may not be included. I do like this image. It's just, there are parts of it that's kind of I guess what I feel is an abomination. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me and have more participation with my community, feel free to join my Discord. Link is in the video description below. If you'd like to support this channel, there's an image of my mascot in the upper right corner of the screen. It leads to my Patreon. Any support would be much appreciated. Or feel free to purchase one of my t-shirts. A link to my Teesprings is in the video description below. If you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.